Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be having a look at how things have been playing out here on the Bitcoin price chart over the course of the last week. We're going to jump in and have a look at how this dip here for Bitcoin caused such a crash in the fear and greed index and the psychological level this had on market participants, as we haven't seen fear this low since the tariff scare. And then we're going to touch on how we see things playing out here for October, which should be a pretty bullish month for Bitcoin. So lots to cover in today's video, guys. Let's jump into it. So since last Wednesday's video, price was sitting around these levels, and what I was looking for was Bitcoin to just chop around in here before we could see price move higher. Now, instead what we ended up getting was this very strange flush to the downside here, which was followed up by a very high amount of buyback volume. And right after that flush occurred, we seen price sit at these levels for about 3 days before eventually seeing all of this get bought back up and Bitcoin's price move back to the upside. And this whole move here just stinks of market manipulation. But what's shocking to me about this little bit of price action here is what ended up actually happening here on the fear and greed index. If we look over to the right side here, you can see that the fear came down to about 28, and we haven't seen this much fear in the crypto market since the tariff scare, which for those who weren't around was essentially this big sell-off here where a lot of market participants essentially thought that it was over for crypto and the stock market and we were going to see new lows, and that the way Bitcoin ended up double topping up here was very similar to the way it double topped back in 2021, and essentially that was the end of the market cycle. But since then we've seen Bitcoin's price shoot up and set new all-time highs 2 more times since then. But somehow during this little dip right in here, we've seen Bitcoin's fear and greed get as low as the levels that we've seen back in April, and a ton of market participants and traders actually come out and say that they are now bearish on crypto, selling their spot bags and essentially saying that this was the top here for Bitcoin. Meanwhile, at the same time, we still see the S&P sitting up at the highs, the Nasdaq and the Dow Jones all sitting well above their all-time high. But somehow this little manipulated move here for Bitcoin marked the most fear that we've seen in the market in months, which tells me that what we've seen play out here during the last 10 days of September here for Bitcoin is most likely not going to be the end of the market cycle, because typically what you see in sell-offs like this is the entire crowd telling you that this is a buy the dip moment and what we're going to see is price move higher. Instead, what we've seen was everyone calling for 104K to bounce, 99,000. Everybody essentially saying that the top was in for Bitcoin. But like we've been discussing on the channel here for quite a few weeks now, we were expecting this pullback here on Bitcoin and then looking to see price bounce higher. And the way I'm going to be trading this market moving forward is exactly the same as what I discussed in last week's video, and that the way we've seen price react during this time is very similar to what's playing out in 2021, and it's most likely that during October we will see a new all-time high for Bitcoin, although it will not be long-lived. Now, jumping in and having a look at how I think price is going to play out in the short term, it's pretty hard to say. I do think that we are going to start off October red and probably see a bit more of a sell-off over the course of the next 3 days. If that means we have to shoot higher before then selling off and finding support at these levels, so be it. If we do want to shoot down, retest $112,000 again before we can then move up, then that's also quite viable, as I can see short-term price action playing out in both directions. But again, just having a look at things at a higher time frame perspective, if things keep playing out the way they have been, which is the way Bitcoin ended up topping in 2021, it does point to a new all-time high this month before we see a small ABC correction and then the final blow-off top in crypto. And for those that weren't around in 2021, this period here is when we've seen a few of the altcoins actually start to top, like XRP. But for the rest of the altcoin market, like Ethereum and Dogecoin and plenty of the memes, this move right here was when we actually seen the top of the altcoin market and for a lot of those altcoins. So moving forward, if things keep playing out like they did in 2021, I'm going to expect that Bitcoin is going to continue reacting like we can see on this fractal here, and that even though there are some slight deviations like what we ended up seeing last week, it hasn't changed my perspective on how I think price is going to play out. And the fact that we've seen such fear come into the market during this clear manipulated move to the downside here, where we didn't see any wicks, any sell pressure, it was just one big red candle, nothing happened, and then bang, price gets pushed back to the upside. Meanwhile, seeing tons and tons of investors and traders come out and say that they're going to be selling a percentage of their portfolio and that the market cycle's over and the top's in for Bitcoin. So guys, I just wanted to update you today with a bit of a Bitcoin video and show how I see things playing out for October, and then it's most likely going to be a pretty bullish month for crypto. And then tomorrow we're going to jump in and discuss how we see things playing out for XRP for the month ahead and the rest of the altcoins, as we have seen a pretty clear reset across the altcoin market, and then it's most likely during this final stage for Bitcoin where we do eventually end up seeing this top come through, that we see the greatest percentage gains actually come from the altcoin market. But we're going to jump into that tomorrow, so it should be a pretty important video, as we have now seen a lot of the altcoins that were on my radar, like AVAX here for example, correct about 25% during this small pullback here for Bitcoin. So guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like down below. If you're new here, please subscribe, and if you have any questions, drop them down below in the comment section. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for the altcoin update video, where we are going to discuss this. So stay tuned.